I want to kind of pinpoint some of the flaws in this car. A lot of people are wondering why we're painting this car. And right now in my camera, it looks pretty good. But there's a lot of flaws when you get up close. And where, you know, obviously in this day and age, this car is worth a lot of money. But you're only going to get that money for it, and that value is only going to be there if the car's a 10. You know, and this clearly with the flaws in the bodywork and in the paintwork, it's never going to have that value. So I want to just kind of look at some of these things a little closer, just to document them for myself, but just to kind of show you guys. There's a lot of stuff going on like this. If you can see it in the camera, if it zooms in, there's cracking right here. There's a lot of spots on this car where there's cracking going on. All I can come up with is probably this car was put together using very cheap materials. They probably use Bondo brand filler and cheap primers because there's a lot of problems with it. So I'm assuming that whoever owned it was just trying to make it look pretty to sell it. So they just use cheap stuff, and this is what you get with cheap. Down here, I don't know if you can see that, it is the paint is actually kind of swelling. You can see a sort of a bubble starting to form there. I know it's hard to see in the camera, but I think there's a lot of problems with adhesion on this car. I don't think it was scuffed properly. I don't think it was cleaned properly. So there's a lot of spots in the car like that too, where you can see almost lifting starting to occur. Here's a good example, a more extreme example of what we just looked at. Let's see if we get the camera to zoom in on that. It started to crack and bubble there. Let's see if I can't even get it to come off here. Yeah, let's see. There you go. This is what's going on. It's just was not prepped properly. I mean, I could probably strip this car with a putty knife, for crying out loud. I mean, it looks like the filler, they must have sanded it. It looks like 36 grit, and they put their primer right over it, which is an obvious no-no. I think that that's another reason why we're seeing a lot of sand scratch, swelling marks coming through. I mean, that's my fingernails falling into that right there. That's deep, and so that tells me right there, whoever did this car had no clue what they were doing. Up here in the front, again, just more cracks and chipping. So yes, from a distance, does the car look nice? Of course it does, but you know, with these kind of things going on, there's no value in it, because whoever goes to buy this car at this point is gonna, you know, see the expense that's gonna be coming up, and it's just not gonna have the value to it. All right, this doesn't look like you can see this in the camera, but the whole top of this body line here on the fender, there's solvent pop going on, and there's also a lot of orange peel that they didn't even wet sand, and it looks really crummy in person here, but I know you can't see it on the camera. On the hood, again, you probably can't see it. There is huge scratch marks. You know, they probably painted it and it looked okay, but once it sat out in the sunlight, everything kind of swells or shrinks, and it falls into the sand scratch marks, and then you're left with big ugly marks. I know you can't see them, but trust me, they're ugly. And then, of course, the extreme over here, there's the paint. This right here has got some serious issues with adhesion. I mean, I was peeling it off in the last video with my fingers. I mean, it's a mess over here. So again, it's really in need of to be completely stripped down and done over the right way. Obviously, we use, you know, I don't want to say the most expensive, but we use expensive, high-quality materials here. And this is, you know, it's not going to be an issue when we're done with it. The car's going to look a lot nicer, too. It's got a little bit of gloss to it, but there's just no like, definition, you know, into the paint. It doesn't reflect very well compared to, we had it parked next to the Buick, the 72 Buick GS we just did. And you can, side by side, you can totally see the difference in the, you know, just the it's almost like high definition kind of, and this GTO is kind of like blurry old 70s TV. You know what I mean? It's just, you can see the difference when they're side by side, the quality in the paint. I think this camera really makes this car look better than it does in person. If you saw it in person, you'd see all the flaws. And you know, if this was a, you know, I don't want to pick on anybody. If this was like an '87 IROC, you probably would leave it as is. Maybe repaint that quarter spot that looks bad and call it a day. But there's value in this car, and it's not worth, you know, doing it cheaply and just trying to patch it together, because that's what the last guy did. And you know, unfortunately for the owner of the car now he's left with the cheap, you know, hack job that the last guy did. And you know, on a car this caliber, it's good to do it the right way. I mean, this car's only got 76,000 miles on it. He has the original, you know, red line tires and the rally wheels at home on, you know, from the car. It's got some value to it for sure. So it's good to do it the right way, and it does look good in the camera, but it'll look 10 times better when we're through with it here. And the biggest thing is that the car is going to have that value to it, and it's going to stand out in the crowd of other cars. So that's just kind of an overview. All minor little things, but it all adds up to a big problem. And it's only a matter of time before, you know, it's going to start popping through here and popping through over there, and you know, it's only a matter of time. So it's good to catch it now and take care of it. I think on this side too. I don't know if you can see that there. No, not really. You can kind of see a crease there in the paint. That's another bubble starting to come through. So it's all going to pop through eventually, and that's what happens when you try and save money and do it cheap. You end up with what was a pretty car now starting to look like a piece of junk. So we'll take care of it, and it's going to be a lot better when